Come here a minute. I want to show you something, and I promise it'll be worth your time. Picture two grow bags sitting side by side in the sun, right up against the fence. Same soil, same afternoon in spring, same $7 bag of seed potatoes from the farm store, split right down the middle. Half in this bag, half in that one. You watered them the same, you gave them the same corner of the yard, and now it's the middle of summer, and you go to tip them out onto a tarp to see what you grew. The first bag, you tip it, and the potatoes come tumbling out. Big ones, little ones, rolling over your boots, more than you can hold in two hands. You're laughing at how many there are. Then you tip the second bag right beside it, and out comes a handful, 4 or 5 sad little spuds, no bigger than a golf ball, and a whole lot of dirt. Same seed, same $7, same water, and one bag fed a family while the other one barely fed a supper, and you stand there with the empty bag in your hand, wondering what on earth you did different. Well, I'll tell you. You didn't do anything wrong with the second one. You just never did the one thing right with the first, and it costs nothing but a little patience and a shovelful of dirt at the right moment. There's no luck in a bag of potatoes. There never was. The Lord built an order into this ground, and the ground has never once forgotten it. We're the ones who forgot. There was a time every family on every back road in this country could turn one short row of potatoes into a cellar full of food that carried them clear through the winter. Your great-grandmother knew this. She didn't buy potatoes. She grew a bag of seed into a season of supper and thought nothing of it. That knowledge didn't die because it stopped working. It died because it got easy to buy a 5-pound sack at the store, and nobody wrote down what the old folks did. I'm Pastor Robin. I've kept a garden most of my life. I learned it the way most good things get learned, from people older than me who never wrote a word of it down, and from my own two hands making every mistake there is to make. And I'll tell you something that sits with me every spring when I put a potato in the ground. The very first job God ever handed a human being wasn't to preach a sermon, it was to tend a garden. I've never forgotten that. Now, the garden store will happily sell you a special potato planting fertilizer for $15, and a bag of fancy blend for 20 more, and a little sack of certified high-yield tubers marked up to who knows what. You don't need most of it. What you need is one $7 bag of good seed potatoes, and a method that's older than the fertilizer aisle. By the end of this, I'm going to show you exactly how to turn that one cheap bag into more potatoes than you thought that little space could hold. And more important, I'm going to show you why every step works, so you're not just copying me, you actually understand what's happening under the dirt. And most folks get one part of this backwards. It's the part that matters most, and it's the one that made all the difference between those two bags on the top. Stay with me to the end for that one, because it's the whole secret. Come on out to the garden with me. Breathe. God is here. Let's get our hands dirty. Now before we get to the how, let me tell you why this is worth doing at all. A 5-pound sack of potatoes at the store keeps climbing in price, and half the time you get it home, peel one open, and there's a green ring or a soft brown spot, and into the bin it goes. A single $7 bag of seed potatoes, done right, can give you 30, 40, 50 pounds of your own food out of a space no bigger than a couple of feed sacks. That's a corner of a patio. That's a spot beside the back step. You do not need an acre. You do not need a tiller. You need a bag, some soil, and the willingness to do a couple of small things at the right time. God gave us this ground to feed a family, and somewhere along the way, we handed that whole job over to a store and a shrink-wrapped sack. I'm asking you to take a little piece of it back this year. It'll cost you $7 and a season, and I've never once regretted the trade. So let's walk through it, one step at a time, the way I'd show you if you were standing right here beside me. Number 1. Start with the right potato. This is where most people lose the whole harvest before they ever begin, and it costs them nothing to get right. Do not run to your kitchen. Grab the sprouting potatoes from the back of the pantry and shove those in the ground. And don't grab a sack from the grocery store either. A lot of grocery potatoes are treated with a sprout inhibitor to keep them from growing eyes on the shelf, which is exactly the opposite of what you want. And worse, they can carry disease in them, blight and scab and rot, that you'll be planting straight into your good soil. What you want is a bag of certified seed potatoes. Certified just means they were grown to be planted, inspected, and cleared of the common diseases. Your farm store or feed store sells them in spring, and that's your $7 bag right there. Pick a variety that suits you, a Yukon Gold or a Kennebec for all-purpose. A red potato if you like a waxy one for boiling. It doesn't much matter which, it matters that it's clean seed. That's the foundation. Get that one wrong and no trick down the line will save you. Number 2. Wake them up before you plant them. This is the step the old-timers swore by, and it has a funny old word, chitting. All it means is sprouting them a little before they ever touch the soil. Take your seed potatoes and set them out in a single layer, eyes facing up, somewhere cool and bright. A windowsill that gets good light but isn't hot. An egg carton works a treat for standing them up. Leave them there about 2 to 4 weeks until each potato has pushed out short, stubby, green-purple sprouts, maybe a ½ inch long. Not those long pale white threads a forgotten potato grows in a dark drawer. Those are weak, and they snap right off. You want short, dark, sturdy nubs. Here's why it works. A chitted potato has already started its engine before it goes in the cold spring ground. It comes up faster, it beats the weeds, and it gives you a head start of 2, sometimes 3 weeks on the season. And I'll be honest with you, in a warm year, you can skip this and still get potatoes. But in a cold, slow spring, chitting is the difference between a plant that leaps up and one that sits there sulking in the mud. It costs you nothing but a windowsill. Number 3. Cut them right and let the wound heal. If your seed potato is small, about the size of an egg, just plant it whole, no cutting needed. But those big ones? You can get more plants out of one potato by cutting it into pieces. And this is where a little care pays you back. Cut each big potato into chunks and make sure every single chunk has at least 1 or 2 eyes on it. The eye is where the sprout comes from. A piece with no eye is just a piece of potato feeding the soil for nothing. Now here's the part people skip, and then they wonder why their seed rotted in the ground. After you cut them, don't plant them wet and raw. Set the cut pieces out on a bit of newspaper or a tray for a day or 2, somewhere dry and airy, and let that cut face dry over and callus. It'll go from wet and pale to dry and papery. That callus is a scab, plain and simple. It seals the wound so that when you bury it in cool, damp soil, the fungus and rot that live in every garden can't march straight into an open cut. My grandmother would have called it letting them skin over. Skip it, and in a wet spring, half your seed can melt away before it ever sprouts. 1 or 2 days on the counter. That's the whole cost. Number 4. Plant them shallow, in loose, rich soil. Now we put them in the ground, or in the bag. If you're using a grow bag or a pot, fill it only about 1/3 of the way up to start. Don't fill it to the top yet. Trust me on that, and I'll show you why in a minute. If you're planting in a trench in the ground, dig it about 4 inches deep. Set your seed pieces down, with the sprouts pointing up, and give them a good handspan apart, about 1 foot between pieces, so each one has room to make its potatoes without fighting the next one for it. Then cover them with about 4 inches of loose, crumbly soil, the kind with good compost worked through it. Potatoes are hungry, but they don't want heavy, soggy, packed down clay. That's how you get rot instead of roots. Loose and rich and well drained. Water them in and then leave them be. Don't drown them while they're just seed in the dark. And here's the woven truth of the whole thing, the part I love the most. You take that seed potato and you bury it. You put it down in the dark where you can't see it, and for a couple of weeks it looks for all the world like nothing is happening. Like you buried it and lost it. And there's a word Jesus said about exactly this. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. The seed that seems to disappear is the only one that ever multiplies. The whole potato has to be given up to the dark and spent before it can hand you 40 back. Nothing in this garden that stayed on the shelf, safe and dry, ever fed a single soul. It had to go into the ground first. Now, let that sit a moment. And let's get back to the dirt, because here comes the big one. Number 5. This is the trick. This is the whole secret. The one thing that made one bag spill over and left the other one holding a handful. It's called hilling or mounding, and here is what almost nobody does. As your potato plant grows up out of the soil and gets to be 6 or 8 inches tall, you don't just let it grow, you bury it again. You mound loose soil, or straw, or a mix of both, right up around the stem, leaving just the top few leaves poking out. And then you wait for it to grow another 6 or 8 inches, and you do it again. And maybe again after that. Now why on God's green earth would you keep burying a plant that's trying to grow? Here's the secret, and it's beautiful once you see it. A potato does not grow its potatoes down on the roots like most folks picture. It grows them along the buried part of the stem. That stretch of stem that sits underground sends out little shoots sideways. And it's those shoots that swell up into your potatoes. So every time you bury another few inches of stem, you are giving that plant more underground stem to set more potatoes along. A plant you plant once and walk away from makes one small cluster down at the bottom. A plant you hill up 2 or 3 times builds a whole tall column of potatoes, layer on layer up the stem. That is the difference. That is why the grow bag exists. You fill it 1/3 of the way, and every time the plant grows, you add more soil, burying the stem higher and higher until the bag is full to the top and packed with potatoes the whole way up. That empty space you left at the start? That was faith. You left it empty on purpose, knowing you'd fill it with stem and soil and potatoes as the season went. That one habit, hilling, is worth more than every bottle on the fertilizer shelf, and it's free. Number 6. Water steady and go easy on the feeding. Potatoes want even, consistent water, especially once they flower and start swelling their tubers underground. Let them bake bone dry and then flood them, and you get knobby, cracked, hollow potatoes. They grow in fits and starts. Aim for the soil staying like a wrung-out sponge, damp, but never swampy. As for feeding, here's my honest word, and it's a mistake I made myself for years. Don't go heavy on the nitrogen. Nitrogen is the stuff that grows big, green, leafy tops. And it's tempting, because a big bushy potato plant looks like success. But if you overfeed the nitrogen, you'll get a gorgeous jungle of leaves up top and disappointing little potatoes down below. The plant pours all its energy into showing off green instead of making food in the dark. A little balanced feed, or good compost, mixed in at planting, is plenty. Let the plant put its work where it counts. Underground, where you can't see it, which if you've been listening, is the theme of this whole garden. Number 7. Harvest in 2 waves, and let the plant tell you when. Here's the reward, and there's a rhythm to it. Most people miss. About the time your plants flower, those little blossoms up top, there are already tender young potatoes forming underground. If you want a few new potatoes, those thin-skinned little jewels that taste like spring, you can gently reach a hand into the side of the soil, right after flowering, and steal a few without pulling the whole plant. Leave the rest to keep growing. That's your first wave. Then for your main crop, the big storing potatoes, you wait. You wait until the plant tells you it's finished. The tops yellow, wither, and flop over and die back on their own. That dying back is not failure. That is the plant sending the last of itself down into the potatoes and calling it a life. Once the tops have died down, wait about another week or 2, then dig. That week lets the potato skins toughen up so they store without bruising. Dig on a dry day, brush off the dirt, don't wash them yet, and let them cure in a cool, dark, airy spot for a week or so before you store them. Wash them only when you're about to cook them. And I'll give you one more honest beat, because I promised you the truth, and not just the pretty version. The first year I grew potatoes in bags, I got impatient and dumped one out too early, before the tops died, because I couldn't stand not knowing. And I got a bag of marbles, little nothing potatoes that hadn't finished. The plant knew what it was doing. I was the one who didn't trust it. Patience is half of gardening, and it's the half I've had to learn the hardest. So let me put it all together fast, the way you'd write it on a card and tack it up in the shed. 1. Start with certified seed potatoes, a $7 bag, never treated grocery ones. 2. Chit them on a cool, bright windowsill for 2 to 4 weeks until they've got short, stubby green sprouts. 3. Cut the big ones so every piece has 1 or 2 eyes. Then let the cuts dry and callus a day or 2 so they don't rot. 4. Plant them shallow, about 4 inches, a foot apart, in loose, rich, well-drained soil, and if it's a bag, only fill it 1/3 of the way. 5. And this is the one, hill them up. Mound soil or straw around the stem every time the plant grows 6 or 8 inches, because the buried stem is where the potatoes form. 6. Water steady and even, and go easy on the nitrogen, so it feeds the potatoes and not just the leaves. And 7. Harvest new potatoes after it flowers, and the main crop after the tops die back, and you've given the skins a week or 2 to set. That's the whole thing. That's how one cheap bag becomes a cellar full. If your mother or your grandmother had her own way of doing this, maybe she planted by the moon, maybe she saved a bit of seed back every year, maybe she had a trick for the hilling I've never heard, put it down below. That old knowledge gets lost when nobody writes it down, and I read every single one. And if this is the kind of thing your grandmother would have nodded along to, tap that like. It's how this old knowledge finds the next gardener who needs it. Next time, I'm going to show you how to save your own seed potatoes back from this year's harvest, so you never have to buy that bag again. It's the natural next step after today, and it's how you turn one season into every season after it. So remember what we saw. You buried a whole potato in the dark, gave it up, watched it seem to disappear, and it came back 40 times over. You didn't make it know how to do that. Somebody older and wiser than all of us wrote that instruction into the seed a long, long time ago, before you ever tipped it into your hand. We just tend the patch. God grows it. We just tend it. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May He lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. Tend your patch. Trust the one who made the seed. And I'll see you back in the garden next time.